Hi, this is Peter.
Hi, this is Sandra.
And we are medievalist.net.
And today we're talking to you about another exciting episode of
Game of Thrones.
Okay, so we're going to start off today talking about Theon.
Theon has to kind of deal with his blunder, allowing his captives to escape under his watch. The first thing he does is beat up one of his guys, but he's kind of showing a really ruthless streak, if not just a little inept.
Yeah. So my take on this thing is he completely gets outfoxed by a village idiot, a bunch of children, and a wildling woman that he beds. So no matter how much he tries to put a band-aid on the whole situation and be a tough guy and kick the crap out of one of his men because he points out his error, it doesn't fix his image at all. He just looks desperate and foolish.
He is in a desperate situation, because he's really trying to prove himself, and he just doesn't have the kind of, I guess, the abilities really. He's not this great commander. He's not this great leader because he did take his eye off the prize just to have sex, which is his, main interest in life apparently. So. But I know how there's this that kind of one guy that's following him that kind of gives him advice. He almost seems to be egging him on a bit. I wonder if he has maybe an ulterior motive. So, because he seems to be following really just this one kind of captain, and he is almost like he's looking at him for advice, and I smiles, and it's like. I've got him on the palm of my hand, Theon, so.
I think Theon shouldn't really take advice from him because it's not working. He's trying to be his father, and he's not his father, and you find out that his father was the one who instigated the problems with Winterfell, so Ned took Theon as hostage in response to that.
Yeah.
Ned didn't instigate this. So, I mean,
Right.
kind of Theon is following in his failed father's footsteps. And the nastier he gets, the more everything spirals out of control. And his attempts at leadership are an epic fail. And he busts out this sort of Machiavellian line about it's better to be feared than loved, something along those lines. And then spends the entire time demonstrating how that's just not the case. Because if you look at Ned compared to... If you're going to be ruthless, do ruthless right. Do Tywin.
Yeah.
If you're going to be good, do it like Ned. But he's just... Ruthless gone wrong is basically Joffrey and Theon.
Yeah.
Bumbling. Bumbling ruthless.
I have to give, Theon, a bit of slack, because this is really his first, foray mission. It's this is the, and he is an untrained kind of, he's basically been a hostage at court for all his adult years. And now he's, he really is kind of not prepared for what he, even a small challenge like this. But at the same time, he's making his own mistakes. And his attempts, and at the end, we kind of see that looks like he's killed 2 children, and I doubt that they're the ones they're looking for, but that a horror at the end, I'm sure that's someone else's kids from that village that they stopped at.
Yeah, and I just think basically he's you can cut him slack if you want. I'm not cutting him much slack because he has ample moments where he stops and people are pleading with him this isn't you, they're trying to point out that this is not how you roll, basically. And Theon keeps fighting his nature and keeps kind of doing what he thinks he should be doing, which is not it. If he followed his gut, he probably would.
He's a really conflicted character,
Very.
which is really kind of interesting. That we get to see him a lot. It seems like he's the one that's we know there's some good characters, a lot of bad characters. He's kind of he's on the bad side, but he could be turned, right? He could become a nice guy.
And speaking of failures, like I was saying, moving into this conversation Cersei has with Tyrion. So what did you make of that? About Joff?
Well, like it was a very kind of interesting moment. Like usually we've seen these two kind of more arguing and bickering in the last few episodes, and we actually kind of see this kind of brotherly sisterly moment, which I thought was kind of just it portrayed well like that. Like it brings you back that they are family, right? And that they can share things that they knew. Like Cersei says, yeah, like I only loved her brother, and I only love my children, and stuff like that, and and then she's wondering if it's because of their sins that like all this kind of has happened to them, and Joffrey has happened to them. And Tyrion is very sympathetic. He said, look, two of your children have turned out quite fine. So you've kind of beaten the odds.
She doesn't think she has, though, and that fleeting brotherly sisterly moment ends in complete awkwardness because Tyrion tries to comfort her, and then just this whole admission of incest, he's like, yeah, they turned out great, but then there's this just kind of awkward, silence and weirdness between them. It's just kind of like that moment of bonding sort of dissipates, and then the other thing, too, is, she's very well aware of the Targaryen penchant for marrying brother to sister, and then they had madness in that family line. So, she's had 3 kids with her brother, and she realized that, she got away with it twice, but it doesn't look like Joffrey's exempt from that kind of brother-sister intermarriage. Yeah. And the interesting thing I also wanted to point out about this is bringing this whole... She has another conversation with Sansa about love and family and marriage. And she kind of has a bonding moment with her, too. Doesn't end in as much awkwardness. Yeah. And she admits, and Cersei's running around admitting a whole bunch of things to a whole bunch of people. Yeah. It's kind of like here I am. She admits that Joff's a bastard and like a really nasty kid. She's like, I know he's difficult. Yeah. And she actually releases her from loving him. And she's like, you don't have to love my son. And it's better if you don't. The only thing you should love are your children because it makes you weak. And it's really interesting because if you look at Cersei and you look at Theon, all these notions of you should be awful because people will respect you blows up in both of their faces. Like, Theon's trying to be tough, and it's blowing up in his face. Cersei's like, don't love anybody but your kids, and everything's coming down around her ears in King's Landing. Because nobody likes Joffrey. Nobody likes her. If she showed a bit of mercy and stuff, maybe... Yeah. What do you think of
Cersei's
that?
a sympathy... I've gained a lot of sympathy for Cersei in these last few weeks, because I see her as a character that has very little power. Like, in the end, she can't control her son. Tyrion seems to run everything now. Like, she's lost all that. She's kind of basically there to kind of bemoan her life and offer, tragic wisdom to her future daughter-in-law. So it's like, I kind of feel sad for her kind of predicament. And like, she's certainly in this kind of state where she doesn't know what to do. Tyrion, unfortunately, really, he can't offer her anything. Like, Tyrion is good at jokes and plotting and scheming, but he's not the one that can show kind of affection and love, right? He's not it's beyond him because people haven't shown it to him, really.
I would argue with that because he loves Shay, and every time he's loved someone, he's had them taken from him. But the reason he can't show love to his sister is just the awkwardness of the position. It's like, you're screwing our brother. Like, what can he say? Yeah. There, ew.
It's like he's like, he can't say any, like, but like, he knew it already, so it's not like, wow, it's a shock to him, but it's at a point where he really can't say anything, and like, I can almost see that he's, his solution is probably to get rid of Joffrey. Like that's maybe what he's hinting at, right? Like there's two other children that can be, that are perfectly good children that you have that could be king. So, and like I think that's because he is worried, basically that the kingdom will fall because of Joffrey. So like he's kind of trapped in a sense, like his own scheming. He can't, bring Cersei into it because he knows Cersei's not going to kill her own son.
No, but he's trying to get some control over the situation. Yeah. And speaking of more Lannisters, then we have Jaime, who, against all odds, manages to escape his predicament. And in another weird kind of bonding thing with the cousin, who is a messenger to Cat and Robb, he gets put in the same cell as Jaime and kind of says, oh, I'm honored, I was squired for you, and you're my hero, and kind of fanboys him.
Yes.
And Jaime seems to be kind to him, and he's like, you can help me get out of here, and kills him.
Yeah, well, it was a nice, interesting story that Jaime and his cousin were relating to each other, and it was a kind of like a heartfelt moment. But like Jaime's goal is to get out. Like he's and this is a person he barely knows, right? And like he has some sympathy, but in the end he's a warrior. He has to get out. He has to escape. It's interesting, like in this episode they have two escape attempts. Theon is unable to capture, but the Starks are. Like you can see like in the end Jaime, we don't even see, like we just see him just manage to barely get out. The next day he's already captured, and like so the Starks, you can see like the heroic Starks have they get their prisoners back.
They get their man. And it's just interesting because again it's like a very this moment there you think, wow, well maybe this time chained up and stuff, and Jaime's relating, he felt the same way, and you think you see this brief moment of sympathetic or empathetic behavior, and then he kills his cousin to escape.
He really didn't have to kill his cousin.
No, that's another thing. I think he didn't have to kill him. I think he
like if you knocked him out, yeah,
whatever. But it is what it is. And then briefly, let's talk. There's some brief scenes here. We have 3 brief scenes. We have Dany, we have Arya, and we have Jon. So Jon and Ygritte are out in the cold, and she finds out he's a virgin. What did you think of that?
Jon's so turning red in the face. That's so funny, and like it's this love-hate relationship that these two have, and something's gonna happen between these two in the end. Like it's that kind of classic kind of I hate you. We come from different backgrounds, but oh man, we're attracted to each other, and like and Jon, but it's kind of Jon has to learn to be a man, right? So
the fact that he can find the sexy in all those furs.
Yeah, she's one good-looking northern woman. So
So yeah, and she escapes and leads him straight into smack dab into an ambush.
Yeah,
and then you get that womp womp epic fail face at the end there, where Jon's like, oh damn. And then we have Dany, who's running around Karth trying to locate her dragons. Ser Jorah's running around talking to a masked woman who's tattooing someone with body paint. The whole Karth thing is very bizarre and still kind of Star Trek-y to me.
Well, it's all...
And nothing gets her... There's a big old murder coup, and then it's like...
We get wizards.
It's kind of... I'm not crazy about Dany's scenes in Karth.
Well, I didn't mind it. At least it moves that whole story along, which seemed to be starting to drag. But we've got Ser Jorah, kind of, flailing away. Like he's trying to lead Dany, and I'm trying to do this, but at the same time, he has to. Dany doesn't want him, doesn't want his advice or him being the superior of the two. Dany has to remain in control. So that's kind of a unique kind of, because everyone thinks that Ser Jorah is in love with him.
He is.
And so, and but Dany's got to kind of keep that relationship distant, right? So, but at the same time, we've got this little tale, and I'm expecting they're going to charge up into this castle of evil, so and fight various monsters and things like that.
The houses of the Undying, where the blue-lipped wizards live.
Yeah.
It just kind of it's just a bizarro world there. But I mean, anyways, I'm not really loving those scenes. It's like bad Star Trek.
And I don't think that third guy that's with Ser Jorah and Dany, he's not going to make it out that place somehow. If he all right, here's the one person gets killed. You go out first. Oh, you.
He's that guy in the away team.
Yeah. He's the security officer. I think yes. Dany's saying, "All right, I want you to check for traps ahead." Yeah.
Lastly, we have Arya and Tywin, and Arya kind of makes her first mistake. Tywin's like, "Let's find this guy, whatever," and he offers her a meal off his table. And then he starts talking about the background of Harrenhal, where they're staying. And she goofs by being very comfortable with him and then saying, "Yeah, I know this and that place and this." And he's like, "That's really funny for a stonemason's daughter."
Yeah.
And he catches her on the way she speaks to him, too. Instead of saying, "My lord," she says, "My lord."
Yeah.
And she kind of gets snippy with him. He's like, "Watch out, I like you, but don't press your luck." But the thing is, it's interesting, he's on to her, that she's obviously highborn, and in disguise as a boy, and he's not doing anything about it. Doesn't it shock you that he's like, what's her deal? But he's just not even looking into it?
Well, you know what? I think Tywin is enjoying it. He seems to be filled with a whole room full of idiots. You go on, because all the other people he talks to, he just has to order around and stuff like that. And then he has this nice kind of conversation with a girl that's for him, a bit of a mystery. But at the same time, he doesn't feel any threat from Arya, right? Although we kind of see that Arya is kind of looking at the knife. He's got his back to her. She could, do him in or something like that, but but in the end, Tywin, I really like these kind of, this exchange and stuff like that. It reveals a lot into Tywin's character, and otherwise, we wouldn't, if it wasn't for this, we would have know nothing about him at all, right? Because he's still, he's just that guy that sits at his castle and kind of orders things around, right? He's not like the other characters that are, doing stuff, or taking chances and stuff like that.
I like this small exchange. It was such a small scene, but it was one of the more enjoyable ones of the episode for me. And I'm wondering, at what point will his curiosity peak where he goes, "Okay, we all know you're not a stonecutter's daughter, so who really, what's your real deal?" Because there's only so many giveaways Arya can goof up.
Yeah.
To the point where he's got to be like, "Okay, you and I, stop evading the question, who are you?" But I mean, I really do enjoy it, seeing, he's a smart man. You can see sort of where Tyrion gets his intelligence and stuff, and just the way Arya handles herself, and she makes him laugh. She's like, "No, most girls are idiots. I don't want to be like most girls." Yeah. And, I like their kind of weird camaraderie. I really like it. Small scene, but again, one of my faves.
Well, I think Tywin sees him almost as like a daughter, right? So, and he's treating her quite well. Hey, you get to eat the food. His food he's eating it up. So, I wouldn't be surprised if he may have already known, right away. But he probably he probably respects the Starks quite a lot.
I don't know. You gotta wonder because Littlefinger was there and kind of eyeballing Arya in a way, but I mean she's such a high stake ransom. I don't know that Tywin would just let her sit there without using her as a pawn.
They
to get Jaime back.
I suppose, you know, like it's like, yeah, obviously she as a captive, she's far more valuable than as a, you know, like a page. That's what she is. So, but he seems to like for him, like I think he just kind of really enjoys these conversations. You know, he finds her, and he's willing to kind of let the mystery kind of unveil at its own pace because he knows something's up. He's too smart. So, because he lets it on in little stages, right? How that you're this, you're you know a noble woman, things like that. Like
I'm curious to see how much he's really holding back, and you know, in future episodes, how that relationship develops. Because I mean, I think at this point, even if he did find out or he does know who she really is, he would still treat her well just because they've built some kind of a mutual affection for each other, kind of like that Stockholm syndrome, you know. But yeah, it was a great episode and a lot of interesting conversations and reveals. And I'm looking forward to next Sunday.
Yeah, like this was a lot like a heavy on the conversation episode. With a couple of bits of violence, but I really liked it. I enjoyed it too. I thought it was, you know, we got to see a lot of good character development, and a lot of storylines got moved along nicely. So, and I'm you know kind of waiting to see what happens with Danny, and you know I think that will get resolved next episode. I hope. So, and hopefully John will
get laid.
He won't get killed, right? So, imagine that next episode. Oh, we're just going to off John now. No, I know this is going to happen.
So, thank you. So, thanks for joining us, and join us next week and catch Game of Thrones on
HBO and our review on
medievalist.net. Thank you. Good night.